Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Nola Simon. I'm the host of the Hope and Possibilities podcast. And I wanted to just talk about the fact that somebody told me the other day that they preferred not to be political. And I get where they're coming from because, especially if you're talking about politics or anything political online, if you get into an algorithm and people are engaging in outrage and shaming and all of that stuff, it actually seems pretty scary. And you're worried about reputation, you're worried about how it could affect your business, you're worried about all of that stuff. But the thing that I have about that statement is it's coming from an area of privilege. You feel safer not saying anything than actually saying something, which means that honestly, in effect, you're okay with the way the world is working, you're okay with the way things are shaking out, and your comfort is more important than your discomfort. So that's not my reality, and it has not been my reality for a very long time. I'd say, actually, ever since I became a parent, that has not been my reality because the world of work in particular was not working the way that I needed it to. And so that's where I started advocating for more flexibility in my work. So work from home, remote work, hybrid work, whatever you want to call it. I needed more of that. Honestly, if they had been able to work with me and give me time flexibility I could have worked around. And I wouldn't necessarily have campaigned for location flexibility, but there was an absolute insistence that I had to have set hours. And in particular, once I had my kids, my hours were 10 to 6. So that was okay in the morning. I could at least drop my kids off at daycare or school or whatever it happened to be. But it didn't work well in the evenings. And we were able to adapt to it for a bit because my husband got laid off and he became self-employed, and he therefore had that time flexibility because he didn't have a boss he had to report to. But ideally, that's not the parent that I wanted to be. And also, moms take care of everything, or at least that has been my reality. Is I needed to be there because my kids needed me, right? And that was the mother I wanted to be. And so standing up and asking for what it is you want when it's not the norm is a political act. And advocating and becoming a subject matter expert and changing your job to have better opportunities to do what it is you need to do for your family, those are political acts. Speaking about it publicly, that's a political act. Being interviewed in media to share your perspective, your point of view, your agenda, those are political acts. So somebody who says they don't want to be political, congratulations, you're able to navigate the world in a way that a lot of us can't in the current system as it exists right at this moment. So women historically have been caregivers, but women also historically have not been the dominant power in politics. And so speaking up is a radical act. For years, we didn't have property rights. We didn't have access to financial systems. We didn't have access to lending. We didn't have access to even create bank accounts. That financial independence, that ability to stand on your own 2 feet, never mind speak about what it is you needed to be able to stand on your own 2 feet, that was forbidden. And that's within my lifetime, right? The bank account thing, the lending, the credit products, all of that's within my lifetime. So women, Cindy Gallup is a marketer. She has a company that she advocates for, which is called Make Love, Not Porn. And she has a quote that she mentions quite frequently, which is, women are not the status quo because women have never been the status quo. So to be a caregiver is to be fundamentally political. what I do involves real estate, it involves the way things work, it involves compensation, it involves technology, it involves process, procedures, policy, how you are in community, how that impacts urban planning, how that impacts commuting. All of that is political. And fundamentally, it's a part of my work. When you say that you don't want to be political, it's because that system works for you in lots of ways, and you don't want to jeopardize that. Now, I also came from a Canadian company that owned a US division, and so my customers for the longest time I was there, 16 years, were actually in the States. Fundamentally, I know what that's like to behave in a way when your politics, your beliefs don't match those of your clients. So I believe in universal health care. I believe in gun control. I believe in employment rights. I believe in pay equity. I believe in paid time off. What I believe is really in direct contrast to a lot of the things that Americans think are fundamental rights. And for 16 years, I had to work with people who fundamentally had different beliefs than my own, and work with them in such a way where you were helping them, but at the same time not completely undermining your own beliefs. And that is a dance, I can tell you. That is a skill that can't really be taught unless you're actually working within that environment. You have to live it. And so I know what that's like to work with people who don't want to be political, who think that their political view is the dominant view and they don't want that threatened. I've learned that. I've lived that from the inside out. Now, add into the fact that my parents were born in World War II. My mom was born in 1930. My dad was born in 1932. My mom was born in Glasgow. My dad was born in Duisburg, West Germany. So they were on opposite sides of World War II, even though they were children. When the war started, my dad was 7, my mom was 9. My mom was evacuated up north to Scotland to stay safe from bombing, and my dad lived through the Nazi regime. I don't talk about that a lot because people fundamentally don't understand what that's like. I never knew my grandparents. I met my grandparents once when I was 7. I don't speak German. I don't know a lot of the history. My dad doesn't like to talk about his childhood. He's not a Nazi. He lived in Germany. So he was one of the millions of regular Germans who learned how to survive in an environment where you don't agree with the politics. Now, I don't know the full story. I got to tell you, I don't. Fundamentally, I don't agree with fascism. I have always been exposed to history. That's actually why my minor in university was history, because from my very earliest memories, I remember debating World War II from both perspectives, right? And again, it's not that my dad ever believed in the Nazi cause, but he lived through it, right? How do you survive something like that? Especially it's like in that family, they had 6 kids. So what are you risking if you don't comply? It's a very delicate thing. And then, of course, what it is to be German after the war, when you were on the losing side. And the country is paying penalties worldwide, not just in financial costs, but also in reputation and what it is to be German. It's been an interesting education. And that's actually having that ability to see both sides of that allows me to navigate politics in a way that not necessarily a lot of other people do. And I wanted to say that it is not a bad thing to be political, because what you are doing is advocating for the type of life that you want to live now and in the future. And if what you're seeing doesn't represent the future that you want, it behooves you to get comfortable with speaking up. Now, should you do this in such a way where you're not constantly debating political beliefs online with random strangers you have no idea who they are? Yeah, I don't think you should do that. It's not productive. You're not going to shift their beliefs. How do you show up in a way that's going to have the most impact and make the most change to help you create the type of future that you want for your life and your work? That's really what my goal is personally. And so I thought that was important to do a podcast about, because politics are not inherently bad. They have a bad connotation. And the loudest voices, the people who benefit from making politics uncomfortable, those are the people that you want to watch for, because debate and discourse are a fundamental human. And if you go back thousands of years of human history, debating and discourse is at the heart of what it is to negotiate and navigate life. And so the people who are loud and basically tell you that you shouldn't be political, you shouldn't express your opinions, and you should play it safe, those are the people who benefit from silence. And silence, nature does not like a vacuum, neither does power. They will fill it with what it is they want to hear. Do you benefit from silence? How does that actually help you create the impact that you feel you need to have to create the life and the work that you want? And I personally don't feel that silence benefits me. So, thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Rules of engagement are respect and concrete facts and polite discourse. If you care to comment, I'm more than willing to hear your comment. I will not tolerate trolling, abuse, shame, anything like that, because I've been very clear in terms of what my views are and what my goals are. And if your comments don't help me achieve those, you're entitled to what you believe, but at the same time, I don't have to amplify your reach. So that's the way it works on my social accounts, which includes a podcast. Anyways, thanks. Love to hear from you, and have a great day.